So, very good afternoon to all the viewers here. I'm very happy to have you with the program today. And it's a Sunday afternoon, and you have chosen to do a lot of things, a lot of series and movies on OTT platforms. But your interest to attend a workshop that makes us really happy, and that keeps us pushing our own limits. And today we'll be discussing on solution-focused brief therapy. We'll be giving an outline as to the historical background of SFBT, the founders, and the various basic techniques and approaches involved in SFBT. So you will be getting an acknowledgement for attending this webinar today, but it is not going to be something that helps you practice SFBT. This is to give you an understanding of what it is, so you can have an overall idea, a bird's eye perspective to solution-focused brief therapy. So I hope we shall start, and we'll take in questions at the end. Save your questions for the Q&A session. So, starting with an brief introduction to SFBT, people were working on a lot of problem-focused approaches. The earlier theories or the therapeutic approaches were all problem-focused, and two unique souls, Steve D. Shazer and Insu Kimberg, they wanted to start something different. They wanted to cut down focus on problem and start focusing on the solution. So Steve D. Shazer and Insu Kimberg are not just partners in the professional front, they are also partners for life. So they, in their combined effort, they started forming a theoretical approach, started forming the basement for solution-focused brief therapy. So it all happened at Mental Research Institute, MRI, at Palo Alto, California. MRI is the home for a lot of therapies, be it a strategic approach to therapy, problem-solving approach to therapy. A lot of therapeutic approaches have been born from MRI, and SFBT also takes its origin from MRI, California. So, as the name implies, SFBT is a shift from problem-focused approach to solution-focused approach. So here, all that we are focusing is what would be the right solution. How can we help the client rather than spending a lot of time in discussing what is the problem, what is the root cause of the problem, and much more. So the image here is very simple, yet has a strong message to deliver. So if you focus too hard on the problem, the solution might be vague. Okay? When we stick too much to the problem and we keep talking about how it is bothering you, how painful it is for you, and how is the experience, but when we focus too much on the problem front, we might totally miss out on the solution that is easily available, or the solution that you can probably work on. So that starts with SFBT, and to talk about the basic assumptions about our problems. SFBT runs on a set of assumptions. It has certain assumptions about problems, a certain set of assumptions about change as well. So we'll start with the assumptions of problems, how SFBT looks at problems. So no problem happens all the time. We don't hang on with the problem, we don't continue with the problem 24/7. It is an assumption in SFBT that there would be a breakthrough, right? A small, at least a tiny breakthrough to the problem. You might be totally having a very rough phase, very low on energy, having a roller coaster of emotions, but still, in between all these turmoil, you would have still had a smile. Maybe because of your interaction with parents or with friends, someone that you are very comfortable with. So, no problem happens all the time. Right? There will be a breakthrough, and we are looking for that exceptional moment while solving our clients' problems and helping them find solutions. Right? Our focus is on that exceptional moment where, despite the problem, you still felt better. So, here, a focus on the possible and changeable is more helpful than focus on the overwhelming and interactive. So we keep talking about our problems. Everybody wants to experience this poor me aspect. They keep sharing what is their problem, what is the suffering that they've gone through, and they want people to listen to it, so they can have this poor me image. Oh, that's so sad. I could understand. That is very pathetic. So they want to have this poor me feeling. So instead of talking about what is very overwhelming, right, instead of focusing too much on what is very overwhelming and intractable, let us focus on the possibilities and what is changeable to get rid of this problem. So the focus will be on possible and changeable. That will be more helpful than the focus that we have on the overwhelming part of the problem. And one thing that we have to clearly understand is the client is not the problem. The problem is the problem. Right? A lot of people tend to grab an identity of them based on the problem that they have. So, I am depressed is not the right way to express it. I am, you can probably say I'm diagnosed with depression. I'm experiencing the symptoms of depression. So that helps you distinguish between your identity and the problem that you have. So when you start saying I'm depressed, that becomes your identity. So we have to clearly separate the client and the problem. The client is not a problem. The problem is the problem. So problems that may appear complex may not necessarily require a complex solution. So what we tend to say here is the solution need not be directly related to our problem. It might be a Himalayan problem, but it could have a very simple solution to it. So I could quote an example here. One of my mentors, while working with SFBT, they shared that once an young boy who was roughly 10 to 12 years of age, within that spectrum, and his father was an alcoholic, severe alcoholic. Every day he would come back home and thrash this little boy. So when this came up to the therapist, when this was reported as the problem, later they were working on how to come up with a solution for this. And the therapist asked, has there been an exceptional day where your father did not physically torture you or say hit you? And the boy thought for a minute and he said, yes, once when I was down with fever, I had slept early, even before dad came home. So that particular day, he did not bother me at all. So here, the instant solution that got clicked is something like, can you ensure that you sleep every day before your father reaches home? So the problem is very complex. The problem is with the father, right? His alcoholism is the problem. But how can we solve it for the child now? So we have got an breakthrough that when he sleeps early, his father doesn't bother. So a complex problem may not necessarily require a complex solution. It could be something totally out of the context, but yet it works. Right? It works for our client. So what are our assumptions about change? We had a set of assumptions about problem. So what are our assumptions about change? Change is happening all the time. Right? Change is happening all the time. We need not consciously put an effort to bring about change in an individual's life. Change is happening all the time. This is something that we constantly, wholeheartedly believe while practicing SFBT. And small changes can definitely make a big difference. So, like I said earlier, complex problems might not need a complex solutions. So even small changes can make a big difference, like how we quoted the example of the young child. So rapid changes or resolution can happen when people hit on the ideas that work. So it is almost like an eureka moment. They might be having a bigger problem that they are facing for a while, and when they hit on the right idea, what works for them, rapid change or total resolution of the problem can happen. So they need not travel for a longer time with the problem. Just if they hit on the right ideas that works for them, instant solutions, right? Instant resolution. And when we talk about change, there may will have been some pre-session change. That is, they would have booked a session with you, right? They would have taken all the courage and booked an appointment, a session with you, and within the phase where they had booked an appointment and they came into for your session, there could have been a lot of changes that happened that we call as pre-session change. Their confidence level to face the problem, or their perspective towards the problem, a lot of things could have changed in this particular time frame, which we call the pre-session change. Because a change has already happened when they opened the door and walked in. No? So for a lot of days before this, they were not ready to solve it, take professional help and go about solving the problem. But now they've made a decision, they've made a change in their thought process, and now they are here in therapy. So all these factors could have made some pre-session change. And as a therapist who goes for solution-focused brief therapy, who practices SFBT, would also look out for these pre-session changes as well. So there are the basic principles of SFBT. Okay? If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. What is the problem that they have reported to you? That is something that you have to work on. If something is not broken, or if the client feels that it is not broken, you need not go about fixing it. So it is a very straightforward principle that if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Right? Because we have this tendency, as therapists, we want to give an holistic wellness to our client. So we would talk about multiple areas. If they are presenting some emotional problem, we would also talk about how they are working or how their academics part is, and we focus on multiple aspects. But here, when they report a problem to you, just work on the problem. If it ain't broke for you or for them, don't try to fix it. Once you know what works, do more of it. So if we have found that the client has a problem and we find something that seems to help, say being with their friends for a longer time, spending time with them on an everyday basis, having conversations with their most trusted cousin for a while every alternate days, or shifting their location and starting to live with their parents. Once we find that certain things work, continue to do it. Continue to do it. Once you know what works, do more of it. If this works, we can do more of it. If it doesn't work, don't do it again. Okay? If the solution that we are trying doesn't seem to work, then we shouldn't be doing it again. We shouldn't be doing it again. The therapist role here. As a therapist, what should I be doing? Right? What is my responsibility? So the therapist is not an investigator. Right? The therapist is not an investigator. Rather, he is just going to note down what the client is presenting. We are not going to dig deeper, ask a lot of questions, and do investigate as to how they feel, what is happening, what are their thoughts. We are not going to spend a lot of time and behave like an investigator. Right? We are going to work with the data that our clients are presenting, because the data that they present readily is what is bothering them, right, on the conscious brain. So what is the issue for them? We will be working on the issue. We are not going to dig deeper and do an investigation here. So therapist is more of a travel planner and forecaster. So when they say that this is my problem and I want to resolve it, so we would go about helping them plan what can be done. Right? So that's why we call therapist as a co-constructor of solutions. Right? Co-constructor of solutions. We'll be working with them, understand what works for them, and based on that, co-construct the solutions for our clients. So they talk about an analogy that therapists are more like a taxi driver. Okay? Therapist is more like a taxi driver, where a client would walk in, they would tell you where they want to go, and you would drive them to the particular location. Right? A therapist is like a taxi driver because when a client walks in, they are going to say where they want to get dropped at, so you will take them there. That is how you co-construct the solutions. So just because they got into your taxi, you're not going to take them wherever you like. Okay? You're not going to take them wherever you want. You should be understanding what is their need, where they want to reach, and we help them in the process. So that is what makes us a co-constructor of solutions. Okay? And therapist, he or she will be a co-constructor by identifying clues for a solution. The client might not be conscious, might not be aware of what works for them or what is the solution that they already have. So we, as a therapist, based on our interactions with them, will identify the clues for a solution. Right? So first thing first, we'll be searching for a solution. With all the clues, we'll be searching for a solution in them. If not, we'll create one. Right? If we cannot find a solution, we will create one. That is our idea as a therapist. So when you practice, you might have three sets of clients, three different set of clients, which talks about their commitment and their readiness to change. Commitment and readiness to change. So once we call them a visitor, they are not ready, they are not committed for the therapy, they are not ready for any change. They are instead here because someone else wanted them to be here. Right? Someone else thought the therapy could help them. So they didn't think of it. Rather, they were here, they just attended therapy because they were suggested to. So they are almost like a visitor dropping in your cabin and having just look and interacting with you. So when we work with a visitor, we should be, when they show the qualities of a visitor, you should be asking, why do you think your friend suggested you the therapy? Right? Why do you think your family thought it would be better if you take therapy? We start from there. And complaint is someone who has a bit of commitment, but here they are attending therapy to complain about their partner or family members or employer colleagues. So they don't have an insight that they are experiencing something, that they are having a problem. Rather, they say that the problem is with other people. So when we work with a complaint, we would be asking, okay, so that is the problem with your family, your partner, or colleagues. But what do you think you can do about bringing a change? So that is how we slowly start interacting with them. And then customer is someone who has higher level of commitment and extremely ready for change, and we can go about directly handling them, and we can directly start working on solutions with the customer because they know that they need therapy and they have an insight about the problem that they're experiencing and they're ready to change. So you might have a visitor, you might encounter a complaint, and you might get a customer, and based on the client that you get, you have to modify your questions accordingly. So this is the outline of how we will work in SFBT, a solution focused approach. So the first step is problem clarification. Then we'll go about elaborating solutions for the discussed problems, and we will assess how did the solution work. Assessment of attempted solutions. Then we give them feedback about how they are progressing, and we also discuss about a preferred memory of the given session, and we can also plan for additional service. So problem clarification. Problem clarification, also known as basic understanding of the presenting complaint. And here, what makes it different from other therapeutic approaches is typically a therapist would ask, "What brings you here?" After once the client settles down, so you start with the question as to what brings you here. But instead, we can go about asking them, "What do you wish to achieve through the session?" Right? So clearly look at the questions. What brings you here? So when you ask them what brings you here, they are going to start talking about their problem. Right? Directly start talking about their problem. But when you ask, what do you wish to achieve through this session? They're going to talk about what they want from the therapeutic session. So that is the focus on solution, or at least it is going to be a problem-free talk. Right? So here the emphasis is to have a problem-free talk, and that is going to be an innovative way to build rapport. Okay? Innovative way to build rapport. So here we'll ask them to define the highest priority problem. Right? What do they want to work on immediately? And we would also ask them, why is it very much important to resolve the problem right now? So based on these questions, when they start prioritizing their problems and when they explain why is it necessary to solve it right now, we can understand the intensity of the problem, and also we can co-construct solutions accordingly. Okay? And in this problem-free talk, you can also ask them, what is the worst message I could give you today? Okay? What is the worst message I could be giving you today? Okay? And you can also ask, what is the best or the most helpful message that I can be giving you today? This also gives us an idea of what the client is expecting from the therapeutic session. And once we understand their need, it is easy to work with them. It is easy to work with them. So now, once you do the step of problem clarification, now in the next step of solution elaboration, we will be looking out for the solutions that the client might already have, and if there is no possible solutions or no active solutions, we would go about giving them clues and creating new solutions. So in solution elaboration, our technique is purely questioning. Right? We would be asking them a lot of questions. Right? SFBT, the primary technique of SFBT is questioning. So there are different set of questions like pre-session change. So you can ask them, after you booked an appointment with me, now you're here. In that particular time frame, did you sense any change in you? Did you sense any change in you? From there, if they state something, yes, that will be a healthy start, and we'll be going about exploring it. If not, then we would start with our next set of questions. So first thing we'll be asking is a pre-session change. Then we can follow it by a miracle question. Okay. So a typical miracle question would sound like this. So let us imagine that you were sleeping, and overnight all your problems got solved. Whatever it is, all your problems got solved. So the moment you wake up the next morning, what would be different for you? what would be different for you, what would you experience differently, and what will tell your friends or parents that there is some change that occurred in you. Okay? So a miracle happened and your problem got solved. What will be different? Okay? So if the client says, okay, miracle happened, and when I wake up the next morning, I'll go for a walk. I'll start the day very energetically. I'll spend some time with my friends. I'll make sure that I talk to them, and I will make a schedule for myself to be productive. So if they'll be giving you a list of things that they would do if a miracle happens, and what would be the change. And we can also, when you ask the question, what will your friends notice in you? What will be the difference that your friends or family notice in you? They will say certain changes in their behavior. So now, as a therapist, you ask them, can we try doing all these listed behaviors now? Right? Can we make a routine for you to be productive? Can you start going for a walk every day so that you start your day energetic? Can you make an effort to talk to your friends every day? Okay. So, the miracle questions would give them what the client wants to do. And if those list of things can be done, right, we would ask them to go ahead. Right? We would ask them to go ahead. They need not wait for the problem to be resolved. Rather, if these are the list of things that they want to do, what is stopping them from doing it? Right? You can still go for a morning walk. You can still plan your day for being very productive. Right? You can still talk to your friends. They're just a call away. So, from asking them a miracle question, we are giving them an experience of how it would be if they do not have the problem. So they start imagining how would be, how would it be if they do not have a problem. And from that experience, from that imagination, we are taking in a lot of ideas, a lot of ways to resolve the problem. We can also ask them exceptional questions. So let us say they have this problem for the past 1 month. For the past 1 month, I feel excessively lonely, not having a very positive outlook towards life. Okay. So has there been a moment where in the past month you did not feel lonely, or you felt a little better? Right? So in the past month where you've been experiencing these thoughts and feelings, has there been a moment where it was not there? And we would wait for the responses. A few clients have said, when I work out in the gym, I feel better. I don't have these thoughts or feelings. Okay, so that seems to work for you. Can you make a routine of it, every day? If best every day. Okay? So we are looking for those exceptional moments in the client's life where they were able to handle their presenting problems better. Right? Those exceptional moments in life. And if those exceptional moments works for them, then they can continue doing it. This is our assumption. Right? That is our primary principle. If something works, do more of it. So when you found that hitting the gym works for you, then do more of it. So exceptional questions. And also we can ask them scaling questions on a scale of 0 to 10. Right? 0 being the minimal and 10 being the max. Right? How much would you rate the problem? Right? How disturbing is the problem? Let us assume that they say 8. Let's assume that they say 8. So has there been times where it was, say, 7 or 6, something lesser than 8. And they might say, yes, there were few moments. What did you do differently that it was not 8 but 6 or 7? Okay. Again, we are looking out for that exceptional point, because the fundamental idea of our SFBT is that no problem occurs all the time. So, when you are experiencing something like a disturbance, a problem, you might assume that that is your life in itself. But we therapists believe that there will be a break, right? There will be a break, there will be an exception. So, no problem occurs 24/7. There will be a break point, and we are looking at what is the break. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, you rate it as 8, but when it was at 6 or 7, what did you do different? Okay, what did you do different? So I think we have a question from Akansha. Should we repeat these questions every time they are there for the therapeutic session? We would modify it. We would modify the question according to their progress. So I'll answer it, Akansha, in our next step of assessing their attempted solutions. I'll answer your question. So you can also ask them, for a better understanding of the problem, we ask them, questions that helps them to concretize certain abstract concepts. So, if they say, I do not have energy at all, I'm totally low on energy, or if they say I'm not being loved at all, these are very abstract concepts. So we would ask them, how will you know if you have energy? What would tell you that you're being loved? So we are giving it a concrete shape, a concrete perspective, so that we can help them better. Okay, so A, B, and C. These three things help me understand that I'm being loved. A, B, and C. These factors tell me that I have the energy. So when the client talks about something more abstract, something on the abstract front, we will ask them these questions to concretize it. To concretize, and we can also ask them coping questions. Okay. When they say, I'm having this problem for the past 1 month, and on a scale of 0 to 10, I would say 9. So, when the intensity of the problem is so high that it is at 9, how have you been coping it all this way? How did you cope all this way? How do you manage to keep it at 9 and not 9.5 or 10? Not 9.5 or 10. You're helping to manage at 9. So what are you doing? So this helps us understand how are they coping with their problems, and we have to see whether it is effective or ineffective coping approaches. So if it is effective, we can ask them to continue it. If it is ineffective, then we would have a word with them and would not appreciate them to continue it further. So these are different set of questioning techniques that we use in elaborating on a solution. So pre-session change questions, miracle questions, exceptional questions, coping questions, scaling questions, and questions to concretize abstract concepts. So with these set of questions, we will land, we will explore, or we will create a solution for our client. Okay. So let us assume that in a session, we discuss all these factors, we have given them a set of ideas. Now they leave this session with a list of solutions that they can work on. So now they come back. So now it is the next step of assessment of unattempted solutions. Okay. They would have attempted the list of solutions that they left with, and how did it work? So there are two possibilities here. first possibility that the solutions did work and they are feeling much better. So uh, we can ask them a scaling question. Just to start with, we can ask them a scaling question, and if they say now they would rate the problem at 5. So last time it was at 8 and now it is at 5. How did you do that? How did you do that? So it is with a lot of conviction and confidence that we are going to ask them, how did you do that? Right? Because from 8 to 5 is an amazing progress. Right? We are witnessing an amazing progress. So how did you do that? So they would start talking about how they implemented those solutions and its effectiveness. Okay? And we can also ask them, what did you do exactly? What did you say exactly? When it didn't work out, right? When the problem is from 8, if it has been only at 7, what did you say exactly? How did you try it exactly? So we can also find if there are any flaws in the implementation process, and we can help them to do it better in a much more effective way. So when they come back for therapy for further sessions, we would also use scaling questions and coping questions that will be modified for the present scenario. So we'll not be repeating the same question, the exact same thing in multiple sessions, multiple interactions. We would modify it as per where they stand currently. And we as a therapist have to give them feedbacks about their progress, give them feedback about how they are doing, what is their progress. So while giving them feedback, we can validate, we can acknowledge that they are putting in some effort, they are trying, that they are trying better. So we can acknowledge their efforts. We can also give them a compliment. It can be a direct compliment, it could be indirect compliment, or we can ask them to give themselves a self compliment. Because they need some amount of positivity, some amount of a boost to continue working on the problems, continue working on the solutions. So compliment would help. And we can also give them a suggestion, more like a constructive feedback. You're doing this, that's great. If possible, change the approach to your solutions, and if you can do this, it will be great. But so far, you're doing well. So when we give them a constructive feedback, they take it in a much more positive sense, and it has more probability of them working. So feedback as a client, as a therapist, we have to be aware of their progress and give them feedbacks accordingly. So there is this one particular question which we can ask them at every session repeatedly. You know, what do you most want to remember from our conversation today? So this is the preferred memory of a given session. Okay? What would you most want to remember from our conversation today? Okay? When you ask this, they are going to talk about their major takeaways from the session. They could say that I got an insight that these things work for me. I got an insight that my problem is only at 7 and not 10, so I think I'm already doing better. I understand that I can bring about change. So, whatever is their key takeaways from the session, that would be their answer for this question. So, what do you most want to remember from our conversation today? And if the session didn't work out well, if something did not click, and they are going to say something that they are not very happy about, something very disturbing as a memory that that they are taking away. So We would say that the session went out effectively if they take something positive with them while leaving. They take something positive with them while leaving. That will support the therapeutic progress. Right? And these five steps are something that are our control, right? Problem clarification, looking out for solutions, assessment of how their attempted solutions have worked, giving them feedback and asking them the preferred memory of a given session. These are factors that we can work on. But as a responsible therapist, we should also have suggestions for additional service. No? If you think that your client is physically weak, your client is physically weak and they need to promote their own health, and that could be a factor to help them get better even psychologically, then you can suggest them to consult a physician, or if they need a nutritionist, you should be having some contacts to suggest them. That is planning for additional service. There could be issues that needs legal support, right? We can work on what we can do on the emotional, behavioral and psychological front, but if the problem needs legal support to bring in total resolution, then we should also have some legal contacts to suggest to our clients, okay? And if they cannot be sent to their house back, or if they do not have a proper shelter, if it is such a complicated issue, then we can also suggest them the contact of a shelter home, where they would feel much better, safe and protected. You can have contacts of NGOs, you can have contacts of you know um, suicide helplines and other helplines whenever needed. Childcare services like 1098. You can have numbers, legal supports for sexologists or even other mental health practitioners. These are a set of additional service that you should be prepared with as a therapist. So when your client is in need of such additional service, you'd always be there to extend them some sort, right? Because they as an individual might not be aware that these additional services could be a resolution to their problem. And when you identify that they are in need of the support, you should be able to give them further additional service. Right? So it is not very pleasing to say you need the help of a lawyer, so go consult someone. Rather, it is much better to say, I know this lawyer. I can suggest you to have a consultation with him. That is much more holistic as a therapist. So planning for additional service will come into picture only if it is needed. Right? Only if the client is in need of some additional support, you can always give it to them. Suggest them these additional services. So this is an outline of how SFBT works. Right? I'm just given a teaser of how it works, so for you to get an perspective towards a new therapeutic process. So I think now we can have questions, and I'll try my best to answer. Any of your queries or questions are welcome. So not just what we discussed today, not just about SFBT. Even if you have certain questions to post, regarding counseling approaches, you can post them. All right. So if we do not have any questions, we can wrap the part. That that brings us to the end of the session. So we can we're just letting you know about the counseling psychology internship program that we are having for the month of June. Already we are running a batch for the month of May. So we are open. We are welcoming registrations for the month of June, and I'll be the facilitator for the program. So it will include a lot of components, just like our discussions on SFBT. We'll also be talking about a few other therapeutic approaches and building your skill set. So you're always welcome to reach out to us. Thank you, Benazir.